So what are those? Well, the tokens module should be enabled by default. Let's check. Yeah. As is the workflows module. The workflows module has, or there are rather different features related to the workflows module, not just the basic workflows feature that is enabled by default. So let's go here and just enable all the features that have some workflows in their name. As you can see, you can tick features to enable multiple ones. And here on the top, under the bulk actions, you can enable those as well. So let's enable all the workflows features at once. And by going to the workflows module, let's try to figure out what it actually is for. So now we are under workflows, and I will create a new workflow definition. Now we have to think a bit about what workflows are. In a content management system like Orchard, you are sometimes presented with cases where you have to do some conditional stuff, or some stuff depending on some event. And workflows is an easy, visual, admin editable way to write some kind of rules and logics. So for example, if a content item is created, you can use workflows to do something, to change some other content item, or to display a notification, or to send an email. Similarly, there are a lot of events that you can use as a starting point, and there are a lot of activities that you can use when a workflow is running. Workflows can have branches, so conditional parts. It's quite cool. Let's start with a simple workflow for now. This workflow will display a greeting to the current user after they log in. So let's call it greeting. And workflows have a similar canvas than layouts and similar toolbox on the right hand side with a lot of activities and tasks that you can drag in. So let's see how a basic workflow is created. I said that we want to display a message when the user logs in. So as I search for log, and luckily there is a user logged in event or a user logged in task. If I drag it in here, we can interact with it. And well, first there is also a warning that the workflow needs a starting activity. So the workflow always needs to start with something. And if we click this on-off button here, that will tell that this user logged in event will be the starting point of the workflow. So if this fires, the workflow will be started. Next we need a task to display the notification. So I will search for notify, and here's a notification task. And this notify action will display a notification. We can also configure it. If I click it, there will be this little edit icon. And here we can display notifications of all three supported types, so information, warning, and error. For this specifically, let's use information. And for now, let's just display hi. And we will circle back to this to make it a bit more personalized. I hit save. And once we are back at the canvas, we need to make the connection between the logged in event and the notification. How we do that? Very simple. We connect the two pieces. So I click here on the user logged in activity on this blue dot and drag an arrow to the notify action or activity. This is how you build workflows. You drag and drop various activities from the right-hand toolbox to the canvas, and you connect them. You need one start action or start activity, but that's it. Otherwise, you can have a workflow that branches all over the place, has multiple outcomes. Quite cool stuff. It's a bit like visual programming. So now that we are done with this, let's hit save. And let's try it out in action, whether it works. I will go back to the incognito window and sign in. We have our previous test account, so I will use it here. Username is test, password is password. Password is password. And as you can see, wonderful, because it works. Here we have this hi message. As you can see, with workflows we could extend Orchard in a way that didn't require coding. It only built on the existing features that we have built in. However, as everything, workflows is also extensible. So not surprisingly, you can also create your own pieces here and extend workflows with it. By the way, there are a lot of activities. As you can see, very huge list. The point is that if you want to do something in Orchard depending on some condition or some event, then most possibly you can create it with workflows, at least to an extent. So do take your time to look through what's there in workflows if you have such requirements. But there is the third thing in the Trinity that we started to talk about, and that's tokens. Tokens is also a quite cool feature. It's about substituting pieces of text with dynamically resolved data. Now this sounds very theoretical, but let's see it in action and it will be crystal clear. Let's go back to our notification. Here we just display hi, but it would be great if you could display hi and the username. Now, of course, we have more than my user, so if I would say hi test here, then that would work for the test user, but obviously this is not something we want. We want each user to be greeted personally. So we need something here. We need to tell Orchard that substitute the username here. So something like username if you are a PHP developer, which you are not. And for the substitution, we have tokens in Orchard. Everywhere where you can use tokens, you can see this little token helper in the top right corner of the text box. If you click it, all the tokens will be listed here that you can use. Well, you can't necessarily use all of the tokens everywhere, but most of them you can. As you can see, there are a lot of tokens. There are a lot of tokens for content items. There are a lot of tokens, or some tokens for datetime manipulation, etc., etc. And there should be some user tokens here. We have a user.name, user.email, and user.id token. What does this mean? Let's click on user.name. Now, we inserted the user.name token. And as you may have guessed, this will be substituted with the username. Tokens are chainable and work like properties in objects. So you could say something.something.something, even though all the tokens are just like something.something. So for example, there are text manipulation tokens, like text.format or text.trimand or text.url encode, and you can chain those tokens onto other tokens that return a text, well, or a string. So for example, we could say user.name.url encode. But in this case, this is not really useful because we want to just display the name and we don't want to encode it. I just wanted to touch on this for food for thought. But for now, let's save this. And let's save the whole workflow as well, because caution, if you save an activity, you still need to save the workflow under the canvas. But there is also a warning for that. So let's try again. I'm going back to the incognito window, signing out and signing in with test password again. And this time, hooray, we have high test. So our workflows worked. If you think a bit about it, it's quite apparent how you may want to connect workflows, tokens, and dynamic forms. Because a dynamic form submission is also an event. So for example, if you want to display a similar notification for the user after a form submission, you can also do that. If you want to send an email when a form is submitted, you can also do that. Because there is an email, send email activity in workflows too. So it's very useful, very flexible. You can build a lot of stuff with that.